2:47 p.m. Gulf Standard Time. The sun was high over the Persian Gulf, turning the water into a sheet of blinding silver. Commercial tankers moved slowly along established shipping lanes. Fishing boats hugged the coast. On the surface, it looked like another ordinary afternoon in one of the most heavily watched waters on Earth. Below the calm, every radar screen was alive. At exactly 2:47 p.m., alarms began flashing across the decks of 3 American aircraft carriers pushing toward the Strait of Hormuz. USS Gerald R. Ford, USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, USS Theodore Roosevelt. Together, they formed one of the largest U.S. carrier armadas assembled in decades. Escorts stretched for miles. Destroyers, cruisers, submarines running silent beneath the waves. Surveillance aircraft circling overhead like hawks. This was not a drill. This was not a routine patrol. The carrier group had been ordered into the Gulf just hours earlier after intelligence confirmed unusual activity along Iran's southern coastline. Missile crews moving into hardened shelters. Mobile launchers dispersing into desert terrain. Air defense systems powering up across multiple provinces. For Washington, the message was clear. Tehran was preparing to send a signal. No one expected how loud that signal would be. At 2:47 p.m. sharp, radar operators aboard USS Eisenhower detected the first launch. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, the scope filled with streaks. 35 missiles lifted off from Iranian territory almost simultaneously. Some from coastal batteries near Bandar Abbas, others from deeper inland launch sites. A mix of medium-range ballistic missiles and advanced anti-ship cruise missiles. Their trajectories told a terrifying story. Multiple flight paths, different altitudes, coordinated timing. This was a saturation strike. On American ships, the calm shattered. Missile launch, bearing 085. The announcement echoed through steel corridors as red lights flooded command centers. Sailors sprinted to battle stations. Air defense officers locked eyes on screens, scrolling faster by the second. Each missile icon represented thousands of pounds of explosives moving at supersonic speed. The carrier armada was now the most expensive target on Earth. Within minutes, the U.S. Navy's layered defense system came alive. Aegis combat systems on destroyers snapped into full autonomous tracking mode. SM-6 interceptors launched in rapid succession, whipping upward in white-hot columns. Electronic warfare aircraft flooded the airspace with jamming signals, attempting to confuse missile guidance systems. Above the carriers, fighter jets roared into the sky. A-18 Super Hornets armed for air defense took position, ready to intercept anything that broke through the missile shield. But something was wrong. Iran's attack was not focused on the carriers alone. As U.S. commanders watched missile tracks split and diverge, the picture became terrifyingly clear. A significant portion of the incoming missiles were not aimed at the fleet. They were headed elsewhere. Across the region, U.S. bases went on immediate lockdown, from Kuwait to Qatar. From Bahrain to Iraq, Patriot missile batteries powered up. Gauge systems rotated skyward. Runways cleared as aircraft scrambled to safety. Iran had widened the battlefield. The first intercepts occurred less than 4 minutes after launch. U.S. missiles met Iranian missiles in the upper atmosphere, exploding in blinding flashes visible for miles. Some threats were neutralized cleanly. Others broke apart, sending debris raining into the sea. But not all were stopped. At 2:58 p.m., the first impact was reported. Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar. One missile slipped through defenses, slamming into a logistics area on the edge of the base. The explosion shook buildings across the installation. Secondary fires erupted almost immediately. Emergency crews rushed in as sirens wailed. Then came another alert. Ali Al Salem Air Base, Kuwait. 2 inbound tracks. One intercepted, one hit. A fuel storage facility erupted in flames, sending a black plume spiraling into the sky. The strikes were precise, calculated, designed to overwhelm defenses through sheer volume and timing. Back at sea, the U.S. carrier group continued to fight for survival. Missiles skimmed the surface of the water at terrifying speed, popping up only seconds before impact. Close-in weapon systems activated automatically. Gatling guns roared, firing thousands of rounds per minute at incoming threats. Phalanx systems tracked, fired, and destroyed targets at point-blank range. One cruise missile came within a mile of USS Theodore Roosevelt before being shredded mid-air. A mile. That was how close the world came to watching a U.S. aircraft carrier burn. By 3:05 p.m., the Iranian volley was over. 35 missiles launched, 28 intercepted, 7 impacted targets across the region. No carrier was hit, but the message had landed. Iran had just challenged the United States head-on, and now the clock started ticking. In Washington, the National Military Command Center was already deep into response planning before the last Iranian missile fell. Satellites tracked launch points in real time. Analysts confirmed firing locations, command nodes, and radar systems involved in the attack. The president was briefed within minutes. This was no isolated provocation. This was a coordinated state-level attack on U.S. forces and allies. Under U.S. doctrine, it crossed multiple red lines. Authorization came swiftly. At 3:12 p.m., the order was given. Execute Response Package Delta. Across the Gulf, U.S. forces shifted instantly from defense to offense. From deep beneath the water, American submarines fired first. Tomahawk cruise missiles launched silently, breaking the surface miles from Iranian shores before racing inland at low altitude. Their targets were already programmed. Air defense sites, command bunkers, missile storage facilities. Moments later, the sky erupted. Stealth bombers operating from undisclosed locations released long-range standoff weapons, B-2 Spirits, B-21 Raiders, invisible to radar, unstoppable in their approach. Their payload streaked toward hardened Iranian installations buried deep underground. Then came the carriers. From the decks of USS Gerald R. Ford, aircraft launched in waves. Fighters, electronic warfare planes, strike aircraft loaded with precision-guided munitions. The airspace over the Gulf became a highway of controlled chaos as jets raced toward pre-assigned targets. Iran's air defenses responded desperately. Surface-to-air missiles fired skyward in clusters. Radar sites lit up briefly before being destroyed seconds later. Electronic jamming flooded Iranian frequencies, blinding operators and disrupting communications. At 3:25 p.m., the first Iranian base went dark. An air defense hub near Bushehr was struck by multiple precision weapons. Satellite imagery later showed radar arrays reduced to twisted metal. Missile launchers burned where they stood. Then another base fell, and another. U.S. strikes were relentless, methodical. Each target selected weeks in advance, waiting only for authorization. Missile factories, drone command centers, naval facilities supporting fast attack boats, runways cratered beyond immediate repair. By 3:40 p.m., Iranian military communications were collapsing. Units struggled to receive orders. Backup systems activated, only to be targeted minutes later. The escalation was breathtaking in speed. Within 30 minutes of Iran's initial missile launch, 12 Iranian military bases had been neutralized or rendered combat ineffective. Not symbolic hits. Strategic ones. Bases that took years to build were taken offline in minutes. In Tehran, the reality hit hard. Senior commanders realized the scale of the response was far beyond expectations. This was not a warning strike. This was a decisive blow designed to cripple Iran's ability to continue large-scale operations. Iranian media went silent, then chaotic. Initial claims of victory were quickly replaced by emergency broadcasts. Officials urged calm. Internet access slowed across parts of the country as authorities attempted to control the narrative. But the world was watching. Images of burning bases, satellite photos of destroyed infrastructure, reports of secondary explosions indicating weapons caches detonating deep underground. Analysts began calling it one of the most intense 30-minute military exchanges in modern Middle Eastern history. Back at sea, the U.S. carrier Armada held position. Damage assessments were underway. Minor injuries reported. No ships lost. No aircraft downed. A message was sent through diplomatic backchannels. The United States had responded. Further escalation would be met with overwhelming force. For Iran, the choice was stark. Continue and risk catastrophic losses, or pause and reassess. As night fell over the Gulf, the waters that had seemed calm just hours earlier now reflected distant fires along the horizon. Radar screens still glowed, jets still patrolled, submarines remained on silent watch. The crisis was not over, but one thing was now clear to every military planner on Earth. At 2:47 p.m., Iran fired 35 missiles to make a statement. By 3:17 p.m., the balance of power in the region had shifted dramatically, and the next move would decide whether this confrontation became a chapter in history or the opening act of something far larger.